Let me tell you something no one in your life has ever had the courage to say to your face. Nobody is thinking about you, not the way you think they are. Right now, while you're lying awake rehearsing a conversation from 3 days ago, while you're checking your phone hoping someone noticed, while you're shrinking yourself in a room full of people, the people you're performing for are not watching. They're busy, they're lost in their own fear, their own insecurity, their own invisible war. Here is the brutal, liberating truth that Stoic philosophy has been trying to hand you for over 2,000 years. The moment you truly understand that nobody is watching as closely as you think, that is the moment you finally become free. This is not about becoming cold or numb. This is a reckoning. Stop spending your one and only life auditioning for an audience that isn't even paying attention. You've been giving away your peace of mind to people who won't remember what you wore last Tuesday. You've been hemorrhaging your mental energy trying to manage the perceptions of people too consumed with managing their own. The Stoics, Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca, they all arrived at the same conclusion. Your worth is not a number tallied by others. It is a fire that burns from within. If you've ever felt invisible, stayed too long, laughed too loud, apologized too much, or made decisions based on what people might think instead of what you believe, this is for you. Stay until the end, because when we're done, you will never see yourself or others the same way again. Before we get to the philosophy, we need to name what's actually happening. Most people already sense the problem. They feel the weight, they know something is wrong. Always watching themselves, always editing, always performing for a crowd that didn't ask for the show. Here are 5 truths, the kind that sting going in and heal going out. Truth 1. Most people who judge you have not solved their own life. The person with the most to say about your life is usually the person most at war with their own. Judgment requires distance. The people watching you closely are the ones least capable of looking inward. You take their criticism seriously. You adjust your course based on commentary from people with no qualification to advise you. The Stoic solution: ask not what they think of you. Ask what their life reveals about their thinking. Weigh their opinion accordingly. You wouldn't take medical advice from someone who never studied medicine. Don't take life advice from someone who never studied how to live. Truth 2. The people pleaser is the loneliest person in the room. There's a unique suffering in being surrounded by people who like a version of you that doesn't exist. You've performed so long, adjusted so carefully, that the warmth you receive is directed at a character, not at you. You get the approval you worked for and it feels like nothing because it was given to a mask. You can be in a room full of love and feel completely alone. Choose authentic rejection over inauthentic acceptance. One person who sees you clearly is worth more than 1,000 who applaud the performance. Epictetus said you cannot learn what you think you already know. You cannot receive real connection while pretending to be someone else. Drop the character. Find your people. Truth 3. When you stop needing their validation, their power over you dies. The person making you feel small has no inherent power. You lent it to them. The moment you stop needing their approval, the loan comes due and the dynamic collapses. You stay in situations long past their usefulness because you're still trying to earn something that isn't coming. Accept that some people will never see your value. Not because it isn't there, but because they're not equipped to recognize it. The moment you accept their validation is never coming, the cell door opens. You were never locked in. You just stopped walking out. Truth 4. Your sensitivity is not the problem. Your misplaced sensitivity is. You are not too sensitive. You are too sensitive to the wrong things. Feeling deeply is intelligence, not a flaw. The capacity to be moved, troubled, or lit up by beauty is what it means to be fully human. The problem is where you direct that feeling. You spend profound emotional sensitivity on things that don't deserve it. A stranger's glance, a casual comment, a social media metric, and you leave yourself depleted for what actually matters. The Stoic practice is triage. Sort your emotions. Ask, does this deserve my energy? Seneca wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." The mental anguish over imagined judgments is almost always worse than the judgment itself. Direct your sensitivity inward toward your values. Direct it outward toward those who've earned your care. Withdraw it, firmly and without guilt, from those who haven't. Truth 5. Setting boundaries will lose you some people. Good. When you establish limits, stop being infinitely available, and finally say no without a long justification, some people will leave. Not because you changed for the worse, but because what they valued was your inability to say no to them. You hold yourself in service to people who mistake your generosity for obligation. Resentment builds until the relationship is just a performance. Justice includes justice to yourself. The Stoics taught right relationship. A relationship that only functions while you're diminished is an arrangement, and arrangements deserve renegotiation. The people who stay when you draw your line, those are your people. Now you know the truth. You know what this pattern costs you. You know where the power lives. But knowing isn't enough. The Stoics practiced applied philosophy, wisdom you can carry into the worst moments and find it still standing. Here are 10 principles. For the moment judgment comes. For the moment the crowd turns. For the moment your worth is questioned by someone never qualified to measure it. Here is how you stop being moved by the wind of others' opinions and become someone who moves themselves. Lesson 1. The crowd is a mirror that lies. Musonius Rufus, teacher of Epictetus, was exiled twice for speaking truth without flattery. When stripped of status and sent to a barren island, he said, "I am not harmed unless I believe I am harmed." The crowd is a funhouse mirror, distorted, changing with lighting and mood. When you look to others to tell you who you are, you receive their fear, their projection, their unprocessed wounds dressed as judgments. Someone who calls you too quiet fears silence. Someone who calls you too intense has never felt fully. Someone who calls you too ambitious gave up on their own dreams. The dichotomy of control is the most powerful framework for freedom. What's in your control? Your thoughts, choices, values, effort, response. What's not? Others' opinions, moods, judgments. Stop treating things outside your control as your responsibility. You can't control what the crowd says. You can control whether you give them a microphone in your mind. Stop giving it to them. Lesson 2. Silence is not weakness. It is the armor of the wise. In 65 AD, Nero ordered Seneca to die. When soldiers arrived, Seneca didn't beg or collapse. He opened his veins and calmly reminded his weeping friends that a life lived in virtue doesn't need defending at its end. He had nothing left to prove. Silence is not defeat. It is the language of those so certain of their worth they don't need to convince others. Think how much energy you spend justifying yourself. The Stoic principle of the ruling faculty says your inner mind is the highest authority, not your mother's opinion, not a colleague's raised eyebrow, not the comment section. When you inhabit your own ruling faculty, you stop explaining yourself to every passerby. Silence becomes armor, not because you have nothing to say, but because some audiences aren't worth the performance. Lesson 3. The gaze of others is a prison with no walls. Psychology calls it the spotlight effect. We dramatically overestimate how much others notice us. Studies show people think 50% of a room clock them. The actual number is closer to 20%. Marcus Aurelius, the most watched man on earth, wrote that brilliant men fade from memory. He understood the crowd's attention is a river that moves on. The prison you believe you're in has no walls. You built it from fear. When you speak your truth, most people don't notice. Those who do forget within days. Those who remember are inspired or threatened, and both reactions are about them. The Stoic practice of memento mori, remembering you will die, is a tool for liberation. Ask yourself, will this person's opinion matter in 10 years? At your last breath, the prison dissolves. Lesson 4. Your approval hunger is costing you your life. Musonius Rufus wrote that the desire for approval operates like an insatiable hunger. The more you feed it, the larger it grows. More likes, more need. More praise, louder silence when it stops. Neuroscience confirms social approval works through the same pathways as addiction. A hit of validation, withdrawal into anxiety when it stops. You're not weak for wanting to be seen, but understand the cost. Every time you change your opinion to match the room, you lose your voice. Every time you stay silent from fear, you practice silence instead of courage. Every time you measure worth by attention, you hand your self-esteem to a random, indifferent system. Build the inner citadel Marcus Aurelius described. The question isn't whether others approve of you. It's whether you approve of you. Only you can answer that. Lesson 5. The opinion of the mob has never predicted greatness. Socrates was executed by public vote. Galileo was forced to recant. Hypatia was murdered by a mob. The crowd has always been a poor judge of value. Epictetus said if someone provokes you, your mind is complicit. The mob can't touch you without permission. Opinion carries only the weight you assign to it. You've been assigning astronomical weight to things that deserve barely a glance. When you feel the pull of validation, ask, is this person's life one I admire? Do they live with virtue and integrity? If no, why give them authority over your mind? If yes, their opinion is still data, not decree. Lesson 6. Solitude is not loneliness. It is where strength is built. Loneliness is disconnection against your will. Solitude is going inward with intention. As different as being lost in a dark forest and walking deliberately into the night to learn the stars. Marcus Aurelius, surrounded by millions, retreated into his journals. He carved out interior space. He wrote the meditations for himself, as daily practice of returning to his center. A person who can't be alone with themselves is at everyone's mercy. If you can't sit with your own thoughts without reaching for a phone, you're running from yourself. The Stoic practice of prosage is self-attention, examining your own thoughts with calm rigor. In solitude, you learn who you are when no one is watching. That's the only version that matters. Lesson 7. Detachment is not indifference. It is precision. Stoicism isn't about becoming robotic. True detachment is surgical precision, caring deeply about what matters while releasing what you can't control. An archer doesn't grip the bow so tightly his hands shake. He prepares, aims, breathes, then releases and surrenders the outcome. Crates of Thebes threw his fortune into the sea and lived as a wandering philosopher, materially destitute, by his own account the happiest man alive. He was simply precise about what deserved his energy. Be moved, don't be controlled. Care, don't be consumed. Lesson 8. The truth about what other people think of you. Most people whose opinions you're managing aren't thinking about you at all. They're thinking about how they're perceived. You're both on stage, watching each other, each convinced the other is the audience. Zeno said our need for approval comes from the error that we exist in others' minds as we exist in our own. We don't. You're the protagonist of your epic. To everyone else, you're a supporting character, occasionally relevant, mostly background, frequently forgotten. When you truly feel this, performance anxiety dissolves. If no one is watching as closely as you thought, you can stop rehearsing. You can simply be. Lesson 9. Build your inner citadel before the storm arrives. Marcus Aurelius built his fortress when he was a student, long before the tests came. You can't build resilience during crisis. You build it in the quiet. The practice is simple but demands consistency. Every morning, return to your values. Ask what's truly important. What would a virtuous person do? Every evening, review without guilt. Extract wisdom from the hours lived. When judgment threatens, pause. Breathe. Ask, is this within my control? If yes, act. If no, release. Peace of mind is not luck. It's architecture, and you're the only one who can build it. Lesson 10. You are not responsible for being understood. Stop trying to explain yourself to people who won't listen. Stop softening your truth. Stop shrinking your complexity to fit someone else's limited understanding. You're not responsible for being understood. You're responsible for being you, clearly, fully, without apology. Julia Domna, one of the most formidable women of the Roman era, was surrounded by people who misinterpreted her intelligence, her curiosity, her power. She chose not to explain. She chose to continue. History remembers her because she didn't make herself smaller for smaller minds. Your peace isn't a negotiation. You can be at peace when misunderstood, underestimated, when the version others hold of you bears no resemblance to who you are. Your worth lives inside you, not in their perception. 2,000 years ago, a man sat in a cold tent at the edge of a war. The most powerful person on earth. And in the quiet before sleep, Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself, not for posterity, not for performance, just to remind himself who he was when no one was watching. You have that same power, that same choice, every single day. The world will tell you your worth is determined by applause. It will tell you you're too much or not enough. But the world has been wrong before. It executed Socrates, exiled Musonius, murdered Hypatia, and it forgot them until their voices rose from the dust. Your voice matters, not because the crowd validates it, because it's yours, because this one life is not a rehearsal, not a performance, not an audition for an audience that will forget you the moment you leave the room. It's yours. Stop living for the eyes that will close. Start living for the fire that will not. The crowd is gone, the noise is fading, and you're still here, still breathing, still capable of choosing. Choose yourself.